Hello and welcome to today's discussion. My name is Salome Waithera and I'm joined today by my colleague Miriam Metto and a special guest who we will get to hear from in a bit. In our previous discussion, we spoke about off-plan purchases from a buyer's perspective. Today, we shift our focus to the developer's side of view.
As my colleague has mentioned, my name is Miriam Metto. Godfrey, we are honored to have you with us today. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself and explain to us what an off-plan sale is.
My name is Godfrey Koyugi Simba from Marina Bay Square Development in Westlands, Nairobi. We are high-end, high-rise apartment developers in the city, Kilimani and Westlands. And speaking from a developer's perspective on off-plan sale is whereby we sell a story to interested investors. And it is a way of having pre-sale of a property that is yet to complete. It gives us an alternative avenue to raise funds for the development, and it also creates a big pool for our customer base, and it helps us to grow with the customer through the construction period.
It is important for buyers to understand the process involved in off-plan investments in order to have an understanding of areas where they need to be actively involved in. In that regard, Godfrey, can you give us an overview of off-plan sale?
Off-plan purchases begin mostly from due diligence. And due diligence involves a background check on the developer, a site visitation to confirm that actually there is a location as specified, and the relevant documentations which would involve title deeds, approved plans, and also as a purchaser, you really need to concentrate or to look into the market research of the area, which would involve the returns and also the viability of the project being constructed. And finally, we always advise our investors to have a financial plan before they present themselves for the off-plan purchase, which would definitely define the kind of payment plan that they could fit in. It could be a cash at hand, it could be cash installment, and also mortgage options. So it's also advisable that the purchaser who intends to buy real estate off-plan to have a proper financial plan.
From a developer's point of view, why do you prefer buyers to invest in properties off-plan?
Off-plan purchase is one of the easiest way, though people take it as a very risky venture, but it's the easiest way to own a property at a price or a cost that is so much lower than the market price. And it also helps you to negotiate yourself through the pricing. For example, a complete property in Westlands goes at a rate of 150,000 shillings per square meter. At off-plan, most developers put it at barely below 110,000 Kenya shillings, which assures the purchaser of a capital appreciation. Apart from capital appreciation, which is the main key for an investor always to make a profit, it also gives the investor an advantage when it comes to modernization of the interiors, also gives them an opportunity to select a property within the location of their own liking. A complete property, when we sell complete properties, what is there is what the investor buys. But when they come off-plan, they can suggest, they can dictate which particular position, depending on availability, that they could purchase. Also, the other thing on being able to purchase, the advantages of buying a property off-plan is the flexible payment plans. There are those developers that gives you range in terms of deposit and the period of making payment, and also gives you room for proper financial planning as an individual. There are so many other advantages or the reasons as to why somebody would purchase as a project or real estate at off-plan, but the key thing is just being able to have a proper financial plan, purchasing this unit at a price or a cost that is lower than the market rates. Most of them we find it's even 30% to 50% cheaper than the market rates. And also being able to manipulate or to modernize the apartment, mostly on the interior design. And also the other thing is being able to dictate the position of the property you intend to purchase.
Let's delve into the legal aspects. What critical documents and agreements are essential in an off-plan sale?
First legal document for a property is the title deed. That therefore means that the key thing that a purchaser needs to look into is the due diligence or the background check of the development and the developer. The main documentations include the title deed, running a search on the same, all the documents of approvals from various authorities, the county governments, National Environmental Management Authority, the National Construction Authority, and even the company registrations, certificate of incorporation, just to make sure that wherever you are putting your head into is a safe place. Thereafter, once the developer or the purchaser and the purchaser have agreed on the particular property to be sold and to be purchased, there's usually a letter of offer which describes the property and also gives the terms of payment in relevance to the purchase price agreed upon between the developer and the purchaser. And once the parties agree on the offer, the next documentation is usually the sale agreement, which is the key legal binding document in this particular transaction of sale. Upon the execution of the same and completion of the development, other documents usually come into, which would involve the certificate of occupancy, the certificate of completion issued by the architects, which now goes to the handover documents, which would involve the title deed and change of keys or access to the property.
What are the payment plans a purchaser can adopt in an off-plan sale?
Mostly in off-plan purchase, a good number of off-plan purchasers, most of them being first-time purchasers, though serial investors nowadays go for off-plan purchase. Most people go for the cash installment payment plan. However, there are options for bulk or cash payment, full cash payment, and mortgage payment plans. Various developers would give you a bare minimum deposit between the time of the offer, the time of the sale agreement. Some are spread within the construction period. Others are usually paid as per the transaction tenure on the sale agreement. The bulk purchases, cash purchase, which is quite risky for an off-plan purchase, is usually at the discretion of the investor. Mortgage terms, it is upon the vendor to give you the bare minimum deposit, and in reference to what your bank would offer you as the external or the additional payment upon the completion of the document. So they're basically the best payment options for off-plan is to do cash installment and mortgage purchase.
Now that we have discussed payments, what are the typical milestones for construction in an off-plan sale?
Upon the acquisition of the location or the parcel of land to develop, the key milestone as a developer now on the field with all the approvals and documentations available would be the clearance of the land. Then we'll go to excavation and foundation development. Then we go to the structural development, followed by finishing and exit from the project.
There are quite a number of risks involved in an off-plan purchase, such as poor product quality, possibility of capital depreciation, and risk of delays. We understand that managing risks is crucial. So tell us, how do you ensure that the development does not stall and that buyers' interests are protected?
The key thing as a developer is to be able to hand over your property within the stipulated timeline. So therefore, a developer, as much as off-plan sales is an alternative way of raising funds or getting financing, you have to have alternative backup sources for your financing. Generally, what would make a project not to be delivered in good time would be finances. So the key thing is to have a secure financial background, of which I would also advise a purchaser to run due diligence on developers who are presenting off-plan projects. And also to mitigate such kind of risks, we make sure that we partner with the financial institutions, employing the correct people and firms to work on the contracts, and also doing timely or up-to-date quality assurance, and giving time to time or prompt updates on the status progress of the development. And in case there are issues that are beyond control of human nature, and also as a developer and also as an individual, it is also appropriate that the developer communicates appropriately to the purchasers or the investors in good time. I'll give an example. For example, Nairobi has experienced 2 heavy rainfall seasons in December, January, and April, May. It's certain that most of the projects were affected, mostly those who are at the excavation level, due to flooding and water not being able to flow freely. It is advisable that the developer communicates promptly to the purchaser or the investor, so that the fear of the risk is taken away. In case of issues that are endemic or pandemic, there's need also during documentation to make sure that there's a force majeure put in place, just to create an environment of understanding between the developer and the investor. So generally, the key risk is usually financial and matters that are beyond human control, and they can only be managed by having a strong backup, financial backup, and also proper communication with your investors.
You had mentioned before that one of the advantages of purchasing an off-plan property is the buyer's ability to make changes to the design during construction. Please elaborate on this further.
Most serial investors in real estate, those who buy or invest in off-plan projects, is having the ability to, let me use the word, manipulate mostly the interiors of the property, provided it does not touch the structural development of the project. The investors are usually at liberty to be able to modernize, to manipulate, to add and to remove some of the interior parts of the development to their comfort, whatever befits their intended market, or those who have purchased to live as their first-time homes, provided it offers the comfort of a home that they desire. The developers would always want to give you room to do that, provided it does not affect the neighboring property or the structural development of the project.
At what point does the purchaser officially receive the title to their property, whether it is a sublease or a sectional title?
Any property apart from land, any real estate property, is usually received upon completion. What defines a completion? A completion comes in 2 ways. There's the transactional completion and the main completion, which is the completion of works. Upon the completion of works, whereby the development is constructed and it is finished and inspected, There are documentations that are involved, which would include the architect's certificate of completion and the relevant authority's certificate of occupancy. Once the developer is in custody of the same, we now go to the second part of completion, which is the transactional completion, which is defined in the sale agreement. For example, a property would take maybe, let's say, 6 months to develop, but the agreement between the vendor and the purchaser extends up to 10 months. So the completion period of the transaction is at 10 months. This is when the property would be available for the purchaser or the investor to take occupation. By that I mean the purchase price is paid in full and the certificate of occupancy is issued, accompanied with the relevant documentation, which would be a sublease or a sectional title deed, and in other cases, the freehold title deeds in the other parts of the country.
What happens if a purchaser had already paid up the deposit and some installments and they want to back out of the agreement? Is there any forfeiture of the monies already paid? And maybe you can also give us an example of Marina Bay Square.
Any developer who appreciates the investors would never want to cling to the investors' deposits. Thus, any money paid by an investor has to be returned. However, there are case scenarios where there is forfeiture, a percentage that is always determined by the vendor's advocates. And in most cases, before a sale agreement is signed or executed, the refunds should be 100%. I'll give an example of Marina Bay. All our investors who intend to withdraw before executing their sale agreement are usually paid back in full 100%. And I believe all other developers usually adopt that. However, upon committing oneself to the sale agreement, which has to stipulate the exit clauses from the agreement, which would involve also for refunds and withdrawals and refunds. This one has to be stipulated and well explained and captured in the sale agreement, and that's the documentation that would guide whether there is forfeiture or not. I would give reasons why somebody would intend to forfeit funds by an investor. It is not intentional, and it is not any developer's prayer to forfeit funds. However, number one thing is to instill discipline in investors so that persons who intend to invest don't use off-plan purchases as their custody for their funds. That is number one. Number two also is a way of sieving the market. That's only serious purchasers or serious investors that are attracted to your property. Then in the scenarios whereby nowadays we sell mostly through agents whom we pay commissions, there are also expenses that are attached to the drafting, preparation and execution of the sale agreement, which would involve even legal fees. So instead of zeroing in on these figures, a specific percentage is usually provided or offered for in the sale agreement, and it is that document that would guide on refunds for withdrawals.
Thank you, Godfrey. I'm sure there are typical construction timelines for an off-plan project. Could you inform us of the same?
Mostly it depends on the scope of the project. The timeline is usually defined right from the time of the architectural designs. How long does it take to come from one stage of the development to another? How long does it take to finish? And some are also affected by weather patterns. However, in Nairobi, currently, initially projects would take longer, but currently with the availability of technology and machinery, and also the human capital is much available, the standard period from the smallest, which would be a single block of between 50 to 100 units, to a bigger multi-block development, which would take 3 blocks up to 6 blocks. The standard time is usually between 1 year, which is 12 months, to 30 months.
Thank you for providing us such a comprehensive overview. It is clear that off-plan purchases, while beneficial, require careful consideration from both developers and buyers' perspective.
We hope our viewers have found this discussion valuable as they navigate their off-plan purchase decisions. Thank you, Godfrey, for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And indeed, off-plan purchase is quite beneficial. And however, as much as it's beneficial, it also needs for the investors to be so careful by running proper due diligence, having proper financial planning, and moving with developers who are credible. And to our viewers, you are welcome to Marina Bay Properties, which are located in Westlands right now. We are doing 1, 2, and 3 apartments on Sports Road, and we're also doing furnished studio apartments near the GTC on Modhithi Road. You can find us at Marina Bay Square. Just check on your Google map. It will lead you to our main show house, and the office contact would be 0780 800 960 for more information.
To our audience, please note that the contents of this video do not form part of legal advice, but we are available to offer you legal advice tailored to your specific needs simply by you emailing us on our emails below.
Thank you.